how to create the best worship set for your church, coming up on this episode of this podcast that we don't have a name for. You should really think of a name. How do you make the best worship set, period? And it all has a lot to do with, one, what is your church? Two, your congregation. And three, the setting of said church. So we'll touch on a little bit of all of that. And we actually touched on this in the first episode, I believe, just a little bit. So let's discuss first off song selection and song flow. So so let's take our church, for example. We're at Rockfish Church in Rayford, North Carolina. North Carolina, off the top, you know that this is the country.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to have a little bit of hickory dickory dock going on up in here.
You know? Yeehaw.
Yeah. So when you look at Rockfish, specifically Rayford, we can get into the other campuses because that's a whole different flavor. When you look at Rockfish Rayford, what do you think would be the best selection genre-wise? Worship is not a genre. I'm talking genre as in like country, rock, you know. What genre do you think would best fit that campus?
For the Rayford location, definitely and I think this applies to any of our three locations, you can't go wrong with country. Especially like where we're filming this podcast in our Aberdeen location. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Where I lead worship, the Anderson Creek location, you lived out that way. That's out in the middle of nowhere with a lot, very country.
Yeah.
And Rayford, sure, we're kind of right on the outskirts of Fayetteville. However, these people around here, we're a bunch of Southern folk around here, so you can't go wrong with country. More of like a rock sound tends to go well.
Country rock?
Yeah, country rock.
Dude, you pull out Crowder?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, shout out to you, David Crowder, you and that long beard, man.
Hi, David. Please come be a guest on our podcast that we don't have a name for.
Yeah, I think those genres tend to go well, and whether that's an upbeat song or even with some of like the slower tempo songs, country tends to go very well. And I think a lot of the modern worship sounds tend to go very well, specifically at the Rayford location.
Now, there's different flavors because, okay, so just to get them up to speed, we have three campuses total. We have one in Rayford, which is sort of city-esque, right? Wouldn't you say Rayford?
Somewhat.
Yeah, it's off of Fayetteville Road. So it's definitely busier than the other two locations as far as traffic goes.
Yes.
The second location is Anderson Creek. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so Anderson Creek.
Sorry, what's like the flavor of Anderson Creek?
Flavor of Anderson Creek. Yeah, so again, definitely country. Because it's easy to say on like the upbeat songs, kind of a bit of a rockin' song or a country song tends to go very well out there. But when it comes to maybe more mid-tempo or a slower song, still country works. Kind of what I've experimented. We touched on it, I believe, in the previous episode, is when you watch other worship teams, you try to see, okay, what can you not necessarily copy and paste, but what can you emulate? What can you take inspiration from? And try that at, your own church. And what I've kind of tried is a little bit of the Bethel vibe. Now, I'm not looking to make a song 12 minutes like they do.
Bridge.
Yeah, and then bring it down and then come back into the song. However, just kind of the atmosphere in some of those slower songs, definitely kind of Bethel-esque. Or sometimes maybe I'll shoot for an elevation vibe. That's the other thing. Sometimes I try different flavors.
So we have the city, Rayford. We have country, which is Anderson Creek. Let's discuss Aberdeen. So Aberdeen is our newest campus, minus the Philippines. Shout out to the Philippine campus. Yes. We love you guys. Aberdeen is more so, wouldn't you say, the vibe that you got? I know you've only led worship here, once, twice?
3 times, yeah.
3 times. So I don't know about you, but I get a more reverence sort of vibe. Like, not whenever I'm here, I try not to throw so many fast, upbeat songs, if that makes sense, because I feel like the congregation here, just observing, it looks like they're more reverent. They show reverence to God, and they want to just literally worship. Yes, they can praise, but I think their heart is for literally like, okay, God, we're here for you. You know, give us what you got, work in this place. And so I try my best, especially last week, because I led worship here last week. I think we did one fast song, and then the rest were just super duper slow. So, I mean, goodness of God, they eat that song up. I'm sure if we did like 2000s songs, like Worthy is the Lamb, any Chris Tomlin song, Indescribable, they would eat that up. So all this to say is, wherever you are, every church has their own style. Every church has their own flavor, and you have to really just pick and choose, and above all, observe your church before you create a set list. Because, like I said at the beginning, you can throw 4 songs, 3 songs, whatever your set list number is. You can throw as many songs as you want into a set, but an effective set is based around what your church needs, what your church responds the best to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So, so song selection and the song flow, how each song flows into one another. You want to talk about transitions?
Absolutely.
How important is transitions?
Very, very important. Now, I'll confess, sometimes I get a little bit caught up in the making sure there's not too much dead space between songs. And yes, you don't want like 2 minutes of silence, you know, between 2 songs, unless the Spirit is calling for that. But there have been times where I've been told, hey, you know, it's okay to have a little bit of space. However, if you are trying to flow between song to song to song, whatever your order of service looks like, if you have songs that are back to back, definitely, one, before I go into this, know your music theory. Now, you don't have to be a music theory professor, but knowing some basic music theory, and the more music theory you do know, is going to help you and understand and help you with your transitions. Like, for me, some of the tips that I would give is, if you can have your songs in the same key, then of course you can't go wrong.
Perfect.
Now let's talk about circle of fifths.
Now let me touch on this, because the first time I ever heard of the circle of fifths was from you. When I first started here, going into this, I was like, okay, let's do, and this might be circle of fifths, so forgive me. But I was like, okay, let's do this song in A, this song in G, this song in D flat, and this song in.
Just go for it. Throw it out in the wind.
This song in R. And the pad, that, because we use multi-tracks, and we use that pad that multi-tracks provides for us. And every time that the transition would hit, it would go like to this sour note.
It would not.
It wouldn't blend very well. Now, when you told me about the circle of fifths, how to follow the circle and the keys, man, total game changer. And from there on out, I kid you not, I used circle of fifths every single time that I am preparing a worship set. So hit on circle of fifths.
And just kind of like a very quick summary. Basically, for example, and I highly encourage you to look up the circle of fifths, look at that wheel, study it. Is, let's say your first song's in the key of F, then you're going to want to go to the key of C. And then if you have the next song, you're going to go to G, then to D, and so forth. Because those keys, a lot of those notes and chords are relative to each other. And so that is why you tend to use circle of fifths. And sometimes you can go like, there's no such thing as like a circle of fourths, but you could go like D to G, because those are fairly close keys. But using circle of fifths will definitely help out your transitions and make them a little bit smoother. And so when creating a set list, definitely take that into account, is see where can either this song be in the same key, or how can these songs be in the circle of fifths or fairly relative. And so knowing your music theory is definitely helpful.
And that's just a Prasley tip, as we say.
Yes.
That's a Daniel Prasley tip. So let's get back to the worship set itself.
Yeah.
Now, when you prepare the set, how important is it to base your set around the band that you have scheduled for that service? Now, we touched on this, I think, last podcast or the one before, I can't remember, but it's very, very important, in my opinion, to base the set not just on what the congregation responds best to, but also songs that your team can play. And what I mean by that is if your team is full of volunteers that don't have a lot of time in the day, maybe everyone has a job, right? Most everyone. If you have people that are very busy throughout the week, they're not going to have a lot of time to practice. So you're going to want to probably throw in a couple Chris Tomlin-esque songs, four chord songs, you know,
or a song that you've played who knows how many times.
Exactly. So how important is it to you to base your set around the congregation, the atmosphere, and also your team?
Yeah, I think firstly, you have to take in consideration finding balance, because on one hand, you want to challenge your team, and yes, you want to push them, take them to the next level, and so give them a bit of a challenging song, and let's all, as we say at the end of our show, let's all grow together.
Mm-hmm.
However, know and understand your team's limitations, because like we talked about earlier, if you have a beginner drummer, Praise by Elevation or Glorious by Mr. BJ, that's probably not gonna go well. Or you, I can't think of a song specifically, but you have a beginner guitarist and you've got a bunch of chords, or an electric guitarist where he just started and it's a ton of effects or a ton of leads. It's not going to go well.
And like we said, that's sort of setting not just yourself up, but it's setting yourself, the team, and the individual playing said part up for failure.
Yep.
And that's just going to lead to insecurities. They're probably going to doubt themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to feel like they're not worthy to be on the team because they didn't play the part well. So how do you handle in that situation? How do you, Daniel, how do you handle calming the nerves of, for example, let's say we just had auditions,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a brand new spanking guitarist who's only 16.
16, yeah.
His name's Christopher. Hey, Chris, if you're watching, it would probably, he's a beginner guitarist. It probably wouldn't be the best thing to throw him on like, I don't know, what's like a really guitar driven song off the top of your head?
Probably My Savior Lives, a good old 2000s classic there.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't be best to throw a beginner on that specific song. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's someone that has been a worship guitarist for quite some time, obviously you can just throw him anything. You could throw him Freebird by Leonard Skinner and he would knock it out of the park,
Yeah.
But anyways, just things to consider. Your team, big factor. Your church, big factor. The atmosphere you're trying to set, big factor. So those three key elements, man. The transitions is just a little, as we said, Daniel tip that you can sprinkle onto any set. So anyways, Daniel, thanks for your advice.
Yeah, of course,
and we're going to wrap things up today. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. The timer says 15 minutes, so we're way over time. Whoops, my fault. Guys, if you're on YouTube, be sure to hit the bell, subscribe, like this video, share it with somebody. If you're on any other platform, share with somebody, let's all grow together, as we say. Guys, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
Your tag-along.
My tag-along?
Yeah.
Action.
Welcome, everyone. No, we won't do that.